He forgot the corridor first. That was how it began. Not with a sudden erasure, not with the dramatic wipe of a fever breaking, but with a slow softening at the edges, the way frost melts off a window in the morning. On the first day after he emerged from the tree, he could still see it perfectly when he closed his eyes. The yellow walls, the carpet, the particular quality of the fluorescent hum, that frequency that sat just below a headache, just above silence. He could see the cafeteria, the oatmeal bowl, the infinite regression of himself in the mirrored room. On the second day, the cafeteria went first. He was sitting by a stream, washing the grime from his arms, and he reached for the memory of the cafeteria and found only the outline of it, the shape of the memory without its content. The way you remember that something happened at a party without remembering the party. He knew there had been food. He knew there had been a large room. The details had gone soft, like fruit left too long in the sun. He checked his pocket. The notes were still there. He read them carefully one by one, and they made a kind of sense. The same sense a dream makes when you write it down immediately upon waking, before the logic of daylight has a chance to dissolve it. He read, "You have been here before," and he felt the truth of it in his chest without being able to locate its source. He read, "You will forget this in 3 days," and he understood he was in the second day now. He folded them back and held them in his fist all night, sleeping with them pressed into his palm, as though the paper could anchor the memory. It could not. On the third morning, he woke and the notes were still there, and they were now simply notes. Strange ones. Yellow. Written in handwriting that was not quite human. He read them and they produced nothing. No image, no feeling, no corridor, no hum. They were artifacts from a life he could no longer locate. He stared at the one that said, "You are walking in a circle for a long time." And then he put them back in his pocket, and he watched the stream and he tried to remember what had frightened him. He could not remember. He remembered the forest. He remembered the stick, which was beside him, which was real. He remembered a long time of walking, months, perhaps years. The solitary kind of walking that becomes its own purpose, that stops being about destination and becomes simply about the next step and the next. He remembered the forest the way you remember a room you grew up in, completely, immediately, without effort. Every tree familiar, every route memorized by foot. But the yellow place, the place he had apparently been, the place the notes described, that was gone. The mercy, one of them had said. He thought about that word all morning, and then he stood up and he walked deeper into the trees, and by midday he had stopped thinking about it entirely. The girl found the door 11 months later. She was not lost. That was the thing. People assume you have to be lost to find a door in the backrooms. People assume there is a prerequisite of disorientation, that you have to be wandering, that you have to have forgotten yourself in some fundamental way before the membrane thins enough to let you through. This is not true. The girl was not lost at all. She was walking a trail she had walked 40 times before, in a state park she had visited since childhood, on a Tuesday afternoon with a fully charged phone and a water bottle and a plan to be back at the car by 4. She was thinking about an argument she'd had with someone she loved and not paying attention, and she stepped off the trail to avoid a route, and she stepped through the floor of the world. The corridor received her the way it receives everyone, without ceremony, without announcement. One moment pine needles, the next carpet. One moment wind, the next hum. She stood very still for a long time and looked at the yellow walls and breathed, and did not scream because she was the kind of person who, in a crisis, does not scream. She assessed. She thought, okay. She thought, this is a place. She thought, places have exits. She checked her phone. No signal, naturally, but the phone worked. The flashlight worked. The camera worked. The clock worked. Frozen at 2:47 p.m., which was when she had stepped through, and which did not advance no matter how long she stood there. She took a photograph of the corridor. She looked at the photograph on her screen. In the photograph, behind her left shoulder, at the far end of the corridor, there was a figure. In the corridor itself, when she turned and looked, there was nothing. She did not take any more photographs. She walked. She was methodical about it in a way that he had not been. She was methodical by nature. She counted her steps. She noted the doors with the voice memo function on her phone, speaking quietly into it. Door on right, 40 paces from start. Door on left, 83 paces. She did not open any of them. She noted the lights that flickered and the ones that were dead. She was building a map in her mind and in her phone's memory, and the map was making her feel safer, which was a mistake, but she did not know it was a mistake yet. On her count of 412 steps, she found something that was not a door and not a corridor. It was a jacket, folded neatly, placed against the right-hand wall as though someone had set it down while they removed it and intended to return for it. She crouched and looked at it without touching it. It was a field jacket, olive green, the kind with many pockets, worn through at the elbows. One of the pockets was slightly distended, as though something was in it. She reached out and touched the pocket from the outside. Paper. The crinkle of paper. She unfolded the jacket carefully. In the breast pocket were 7 yellow sticky notes. She read them one by one, and by the time she reached the last one, she was sitting cross-legged on the damp carpet, and her methodical nature had abandoned her entirely. Not because the notes described the back rooms. She was already in the back rooms. She had incorporated that. But because the last note said, "The next one will need these more than you do. Leave the jacket." She looked at the notes in her hand, and she looked at the jacket on the floor. And she thought about the word next and everything it implied. She thought about what it meant that a note had known she was coming. She thought about what it meant that a note could know anything at all. She thought about the figure in the photograph, behind her left shoulder, standing at the end of the corridor she had already walked through, and she thought about what it meant that when she had turned, the corridor had been empty. She folded the notes. She put them in her own pocket. She put the jacket back the way she found it. Then she turned around and walked back the way she had come, counting her steps. At 412 steps in the other direction, she found a door she had not noted, not in the right-hand wall where she had found the jacket, in the left-hand wall at a point on her mental map where there had been only blank wall when she passed before. She stood in front of it, and it felt like nothing, and she opened it. A trail. Her trail. Pine needles and late afternoon light and wind that was real and honest and meant something. She stepped through and turned, and the door was already becoming bark. And she watched it go. And the clock on her phone flickered and read 2:48 p.m. 1 minute. She had been in there for 1 minute of the world's time. She stood on the trail for a long time. Then she took out her phone and opened the voice memo and listened to herself counting footsteps in a quiet, careful voice. And she listened to herself noting each door. And the recording was clear and audible right up until the 412th step, at which point there was a sound that she could not identify. Not static, not wind, something organic, something almost vocal. And then the recording ended. The photograph was gone too. The one with the figure. The storage showed she had taken a photo at 2:47 p.m., and the storage showed it had been deleted at 2:47 p.m. and there was no record of what it had contained. She put her phone in her pocket and she walked back to her car and she drove home. And she did not tell anyone. She was the kind of person who, when she did not have an explanation for something, did not speak about it until she did. She put the sticky notes in a shoebox under her bed, and she went to work the next day and the day after that, and she was fine. Except sometimes in office buildings, when the lights flickered overhead, she felt something move in her chest, a recognition without a source, like a word in a language she had never learned, but somehow knew she had once spoken fluently. He found the jacket pocket on a Tuesday. Not his jacket. He had no jacket. He found the pocket itself, stitched somehow to the inside of his coat, which had not had this pocket before, or perhaps had always had it, and he had never found it, or perhaps the coat had grown it in the night, the way the car door grew notes. He could not say. He reached inside and his fingers found paper, and he pulled it out and looked at it. A sticky note, yellow, written in handwriting that was not quite human. He read it. He read it again. He turned it over. He looked at it for a long time. He put it in the pocket of the coat that had always or never had this pocket, and he kept walking through the forest and the light moved through the trees and somewhere in a city he could not name, when a girl was putting a shoebox under her bed. And somewhere in the yellow corridors, the lights hummed on and on without anyone to hum for. The note said, "You are not the first. You are not the last. You are not even the most interesting, but you made it out. And that is enough. And that has always been enough. And somewhere something that does not have a name is glad." He folded it. He walked. The pines moved around him in the wind, and the afternoon light was amber and green and warm and cool. And he thought about nothing at all. And the thinking about nothing felt like the best thing he had ever done. The corridor is still there. It is always still there. It does not require visitors to exist, does not require witnesses, does not require the acknowledgement of anyone. It hums in the fluorescent way of things that were built for a purpose no one can remember, and continues that purpose out of a fidelity to its own design. The doors open and shut on schedules that belong to no calendar. The carpet absorbs whatever falls on it. The lights tick and buzz, and one of them, always one of them, flickers in a rhythm that almost resembles language. Almost. If you have ever walked into a room and felt, for one disorientating half-second, that you have been here before, not this room, not this building, but this quality of space, this particular hum, this specific shade of yellow that is not quite yellow, that was not déjà vu. That was the membrane. That was it recognizing you. Walk carefully. Stay in the middle of the corridor. Do not open the warm doors. Do not look too long at still water. If you find a jacket that does not belong to you, leave it where it is. And if you find a door that feels like nothing, run.